Juliana of the Netherlands. Juliana Louise Emma Marie Wilhelmina, April 30, 1909, March 20, 2004, was Queen of the Netherlands from 1948 until her abdication in 1980. Juliana was the only child of Queen Wilhelmina and Prince Henry of Mecklenburg-Schwerin. She received a private education and studied international law at the University of Leiden. In 1937, she married Prince Bernhard of Lippe-Biesterfeld, with whom she had 4 daughters, Beatrix, Irene, Margriet, and Christina. During the German invasion of the Netherlands in the Second World War, the royal family was evacuated to the United Kingdom. Juliana then relocated to Canada with her children, while Wilhelmina and Bernhard remained in Britain. The royal family returned to the Netherlands after its liberation in 1945. Due to Wilhelmina's failing health, Juliana took over royal duties briefly in 1947 and 1948. In September 1948, Wilhelmina abdicated and Juliana ascended to the Dutch throne. Her reign saw the decolonization and independence of the Dutch East Indies, now Indonesia, and Suriname. Despite a series of controversies involving the royal family, Juliana remained a popular figure among the Dutch. In April 1980, Juliana abdicated in favor of her eldest daughter Beatrix. Upon her death in 2004 at the age of 94, she was the longest-lived former reigning monarch in the world. Juliana was born on April 30, 1909 at Nieuwrand Palace in The Hague, the only daughter of the reigning Dutch monarch, Queen Wilhelmina. Her father was Duke Henry of Mecklenburg-Schwerin. She was the first Dutch royal baby since Wilhelmina herself was born in 1880. Wilhelmina had suffered 2 miscarriages and 1 stillbirth, raising the prospect of a succession crisis. The Queen's nearest relative was Prince Heinrich XXXII Roos of Kostritz, whose close ties to Germany made him unpopular in the Netherlands. Juliana's birth thus assured the royal family's survival. Her mother suffered 2 further miscarriages after her birth, leaving Juliana as the royal couple's only child. According to several sources, Juliana was happy to be an only child because that meant she did not have to fight for attention. Juliana spent her childhood at Het Loo Palace in Apeldoorn, and at Nieuwrand Palace and Wittenbosch Palace in The Hague. A small school class was formed at Nieuwrand Palace on the advice of the educator Jan Lichtert so that, from the age of 6, the princess could receive her primary education with children of her own age. These children were Baroness Elise Bentinck, Baroness Elizabeth van Hardenbroek and Jonkherouwe Mieck, Mary, de Jonge. As the Dutch constitution specified that Princess Juliana should be ready to succeed to the throne by the age of 18, her education proceeded at a faster pace than that of most children. After 5 years of primary education, the princess received her secondary education, to pre-university level, from private tutors. On April 30, 1927, Princess Juliana celebrated her 18th birthday. Under the constitution, she had officially come of age and was entitled to assume the royal prerogative, if necessary. 2 days later her mother installed her in the Raad van State, Council of State. In the same year, the princess enrolled as a student at the University of Leiden. In her first years at university, she attended lectures in sociology, jurisprudence, economics, history of religion, parliamentary history, and constitutional law. In the course of her studies she also attended lectures on the cultures of Suriname in the Netherlands Antilles, international affairs, international law, history, and European law. She graduated from the university in 1930 with a bachelor's degree in international law. She was taught Greek literature by Sophia Antoniadis, the university's first female professor. On May 12, 1940, during the invasion of the Netherlands by Germany in the Second World War, Prince Bernhard and Princess Juliana were evacuated to the United Kingdom to be followed the following day by Queen Wilhelmina and the Dutch government, who set up a government in exile. The princess remained there for a month before taking the children to Ottawa, the capital of Canada, where she resided at Stornoway in the suburb of Rockcliffe Park. Her mother and husband remained in Britain with the Dutch government in exile. When her third child, Princess Margriet, was born on January 19, 1943, Governor-General Lord Athlone granted royal assent to a special law declaring Princess Juliana's rooms at the Ottawa Civic Hospital to be extraterritorial in order that the infant would have exclusively Dutch, not dual nationality. Had these arrangements not been made, Princess Margriet would not be in the line of succession. The Canadian government flew the Dutch tricolour flag on Parliament's Peace Tower while its carillon rang out with Dutch music at the news of Princess Margriet's birth. Prince Bernhard, who had remained in London to assist his mother-in-law Queen Wilhelmina and the government with operating in exile, was able to visit his family in Canada and be there for Margriet's birth. Princess Juliana's genuine warmth and the gestures of her Canadian hosts created a lasting bond, which was reinforced when Canadian soldiers fought and died by the thousands in 1944 and 1945 to liberate the Netherlands from the Nazis. She returned with Queen Wilhelmina by a military transport plane to the liberated part of the Netherlands on May 2, 1945, rushing to Breda to set up a temporary Dutch government. Once home, she expressed her gratitude to Canada by sending the city of Ottawa 100,000 tulip bulbs. Juliana erected a wooden lectern and brass plaque which is dedicated in thanks to the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, Ottawa, for their hospitality during her residence in Ottawa. On June 24, 1945, she sailed on the RMS Queen Elizabeth from Gourock, Scotland, to the United States, listing her last permanent residence as London, England. The following year, 1946, Juliana donated another 20,500 bulbs, with the request that a portion of these be planted at the grounds of the Ottawa Civic Hospital where she had given birth to Margriet. At the same time, she promised Ottawa an annual gift of tulips during her lifetime to show her lasting appreciation for Canada's wartime hospitality. Each year Ottawa hosts the Canadian Tulip Festival in celebration of this gift. On May 2, 1945, Princess Juliana was returned with her mother to Dutch soil. Initially they lived in temporary quarters at Anvil just south of Breda. Juliana took part in the post-war relief operation for the people in the northern part of the country who had suffered through starvation during the hunger winter of 1944 to 1945, which had taken the lives of many of her countrymen. She was very active as the president of the Dutch Red Cross and worked closely with the National Reconstruction Organization. Her down-to-earth manner endeared her to her people so much that a majority of the Dutch people would soon want Queen Wilhelmina to abdicate in favor of her daughter. In the spring of 1946 Princess Juliana and Prince Bernhard visited the countries that had helped the Netherlands during the occupation. During her pregnancy with her last child, Marika Christina, Princess Juliana contracted rubella. The girl was born in 1947 with cataracts in both eyes and was soon diagnosed as almost totally blind in one eye and severely limited in the other. Despite her blindness, Christina, as she was called, was a happy and gifted child with a talent for languages and an ear for music. Over time, and with advances in medical technology, her eyesight did improve such that with thick glasses, she could attend school and even ride a bicycle. However, before that happened, her mother, the princess, clinging to any thread that offered some hope for a cure, came under the strong influence of Greet Hofmans, a faith healer with heterodox beliefs, who was considered by her many detractors to be a sham. Wilhelmina's increasingly precarious health made it increasingly difficult for her to perform her duties. Juliana was forced to take over as regent from 14 October to December 1, 1947. Wilhelmina seriously considered abdicating in favor of Juliana at the end of 1947, but Juliana urged her mother to stay on the throne so she could celebrate her Golden Jubilee in 1948. However, Wilhelmina was forced by further health problems to relinquish her royal duties to Juliana once again on May 4, 1948. The independence of Indonesia, which saw more than 150,000 Dutch troops stationed there as decolonization force, was regarded as an economic disaster for the Netherlands. With a certain loss of the prized colony, the Queen announced her intention to abdicate, doing so on September 4, 1948. 2 days later, with the eyes of the world upon her, Juliana was sworn in and inaugurated as monarch during a joint session of the States General at a ceremony held in the Nieuwe Kerk in Amsterdam, becoming the 12th member of the House of Orange to rule the Netherlands. On December 27, 1949 at Dam Palace in Amsterdam, Queen Juliana signed the papers that recognized Indonesian sovereignty over the former Dutch colony. She became Hoofd der Unie, head of the Union, of the Netherlands-Indonesian Union, 1949 to 1956. On December 15, 1954, the Queen announced that the nation's Caribbean possessions of the Netherlands Antilles and Suriname were to be reconstituted as constituent countries of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, making them equal partners with the mainland. The near-blindness of her daughter Christina and the increasing influence of Hofmans, who had moved into a royal palace, severely affected the Queen's marital relationship. Over the next few years, the controversy surrounding the faith healer, at first kept out of the Dutch media, erupted into a national debate over the competency of the Queen. However, the debate subsided in part due to Juliana's efforts to connect with her people. She often appeared in public dressed like any ordinary Dutch woman, and preferred to be addressed as mevrouw, Dutch for Mrs., rather than her formal title of Majesty. She also began riding a bicycle for exercise and fresh air. Although the bicycle and the down-to-earth manner suggest a simple lifestyle, the Dutch royal court of the 1950s and 1960s was still an opulent affair with chamberlains in magnificent uniforms, gilded state coaches, visits to towns in open carriages and lavish entertaining in the huge palaces. At the same time the Queen began visiting the citizens of the nearby towns and, unannounced, would drop in on social institutions and schools. On the international stage, Queen Juliana was interested in the problems of developing countries, the refugee problem, and particularly child welfare in developing countries. In the spring of 1975, a group of South Moluccans were caught conspiring to steal a heavy truck and ram the gates of Seestadok Palace to kidnap the Queen. 10 members of the group in a vehicle full of firearms were arrested. The group's alleged aim was to force the Dutch government to recognize the Republic Maluku Selatan, RMS, as an independent state and try to make the Indonesian government do the same. 17 South Moluccan youngsters were tried and convicted and sentenced to up to 6 years imprisonment. This was one of a series of actions for this cause during the 1970s, including the 1975 Dutch train hostage crisis, the 1975 Indonesian consulate hostage crisis, the 1977 Dutch train hostage crisis, the 1977 Dutch school hostage crisis, and the 1978 Dutch province hall hostage crisis. On November 25, 1975, Suriname seceded from the Dutch kingdom and became independent. Representing the Queen at the independence ceremony in the Surinamese capital, Paramaribo, were the heir presumptive Princess Beatrix and her husband Prince Claus. Scandal rocked the royal family again in 1976, when it was revealed that Prince Bernhard had accepted a $1.1 million bribe from U.S. aircraft manufacturer Lockheed Corporation to influence the Dutch government's purchase of fighter aircraft in what became known as the Lockheed scandal. Prime Minister Joop den Uyl ordered an inquiry into the affair, while Prince Bernhard refused to answer reporters' questions, stating, "I am above such things." Rather than calling on the Queen to abdicate, the Dutch people were this time fearful that their beloved Juliana might abdicate out of shame or because of a criminal prosecution conducted in her name against her consort. On August 26, 1976, a censored and toned-down yet devastating report on Prince Bernhard's activities was released to a shocked Dutch public. The prince resigned his various high-profile positions as a lieutenant admiral, a general, and an inspector general of the armed forces. He resigned from his positions on the boards of many businesses, charities, the World Wildlife Fund, and other institutions. The prince also accepted that he would have to give up wearing his beloved uniforms. In return, the States General accepted that there was to be no criminal prosecution. On her silver jubilee in 1973, Queen Juliana donated all of the money that had been raised by the National Silver Jubilee Committee to organizations for children in need throughout the world. She donated the gift from the nation which she received on her 70th birthday, in 1979, to the International Year of the Child. As a reigning European monarch, she was given supernumerary membership of the Order of the Garter as the 922nd inductee, with the rank of Stranger Lady, in 1958. On April 30, 1980, her 71st birthday, Queen Juliana abdicated and her eldest daughter succeeded her. Juliana remained active in numerous charitable causes until well into her 80s. Queen Juliana was very attached to Monte Argentario, in Tuscany, a favorite place for the Dutch royal family for their summer holidays for more than 40 years. From the mid-1990s, Juliana's health declined and she also suffered the progressive onset of dementia. Juliana did not appear in public after this time. At the order of the royal family's doctors, Juliana was placed under 24-hour care. Prince Bernhard said in a television interview in 2001 that the former queen was no longer able to recognize her family and that she had been suffering from Alzheimer's disease for several years. Juliana died in her sleep on March 20, 2004 at the age of 94, at Seestedijk Palace in Barn from complications of pneumonia, 70 years to the day after her grandmother, Queen Emma. She was embalmed, unlike her mother Wilhelmina, who chose not to be, and on March 30, 2004 interred beside her mother in the royal vaults under the Nieuwe Kerk in Delft. The memorial service made her ecumenical and often highly personal views on matters of religion public. The late princess, a pastor said in her sermon, was interested in all religions and in reincarnation. Juliana's husband Prince Bernhard died about 9 months later aged 93, on December 1, 2004, his remains were placed next to hers. In 2009, an exhibition of portraits of Juliana, and objects from her life, was held at the Hetlu Palace to mark the centenary of her birth. Thanks for watching HerStory channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe our channel.